So are you eager to know what's on the HESI A2 ANP section so you can ace it on your first attempt and secure your spot in your dream program? Well, you're in luck because today I'm going to reveal all the secrets that you need to know. I'm Megan. So in today's video, I'm going to dive deep into the HESI A2 ANP section of the entrance exam. I'll walk you through exactly what you need to study and familiarize yourself to skyrocket your scores in the AP section. So trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to feel confident, you're going to know exactly what you need to study, and you're going to be ready to conquer the exam. But before we get started, let's make sure you check out the links in the description below. You'll find there's a free HESI A2 practice test covering all the sections of the exam, our engaging TikTok to follow for studying on the go, a supportive and collaborative HESI study group, and an incredible online course that brings everything together with all the essential resources you need to excel in this HESI journey. Okay, real quick, a little bit about the tests. The HESI ANP section is going to aim to evaluate your comprehension of the concepts covered in both ANP1 and ANP2. You can expect questions to test your understanding how a specific part of the body functions and what its role in the body is. So instead of simply memorizing questions and answers, it's going to be crucial to focus on truly understanding the information and retaining it. So this way, you'll be able not only to answer exam questions effectively, but you can also apply this knowledge throughout your academic journey in your chosen program. So we're going to shift our focus from memorization to comprehensive learning and practical application. The ANP sections can be divided into three core parts. There's the organization of systems, support and movement, and then integration and control. It's a total of 11 topics, and I'm going to give you all the details, what to focus on, and just remember, if you're not getting something, it's okay. You're going to know that our online course covers every topic, and it's in a very detailed way, so you can learn and understand each topic. There's video lessons, flashcards, practice tests, and more. Okay, first up, we have the organization of the human body. There's going to be quite a few things. First off, we're going to need to know the levels of organization. The body can be studied at 7 structural levels, starting from the chemical level all the way up to the organism level. Each level builds upon the previous one, and it's forming a complex and interconnected system. Next, you're going to have to know the body cavities. The human body houses several cavities that hold and protect internal organs. We will explore the ventricle cavity, which it contains the thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities, and the dorsal cavity, which include the cranial and spinal cavities. There's going to be a lot of important terminology, and we're going to discuss directional terms used in anatomical position, such as proximal versus distal and supine versus prone. Also, the importance of body planes like sagittal versus transverse plane. These planes allow us to observe and analyze the body's structures effectively. Next is body regions. The body is divided into 4 main regions, and you're going to want to know each 4 and what it is. So there's the upper limb, lower limb, central region, and the head region. Understanding these regions helps us locate and discuss specific areas of the body. You also need to know about human tissues and what types they are. So we're going to explore the 4 primary tissues found in the human body. There's connective, epithelial, muscular, and neural. Each tissue has a unique structure and functions that contribute to overall functioning of the body. And then there's homeostasis and feedback mechanisms. So homeostasis refers to the maintenance of a stable internal environment in the body. We will discuss negative feedback mechanisms, which help regulate various body systems. And we're going to touch on positive feedback mechanisms, which are rare, but they can lead away from homeostasis. So that's basically some of the main points of the organization of the human body. So now we're going to jump into one of my favorite systems, the cardiovascular system. You will see a lot of questions on the cardiovascular system on the HESI exam. The expectation is that you will need to have a deep functional understanding of the heart, blood flow, and its anatomy. So let's review some specifics. You need to understand what blood is, the elements it's made of, and their function. Blood is our life-sustaining fluid, and it's a type of connective tissue that's composed of formed elements, plasma, and other substances. You need to know each of these formed elements and what unique purpose they serve. For example, there's red blood cells, which is also known as erythrocytes, and that carries oxygen. The white blood cells are also known as leukocytes, and they fight infection. And then platelets are known as thrombocytes, which help in blood clotting. Together, they ensure our body functions optimally. Another important thing you need to know is the difference between the blood groups. See, there's inherited differences in antigens on the red blood cells that determine the 4 common blood groups. The blood groups are A, B, AB, and O. To determine blood types, we use a process called agglutination. This test involves observing the blood cells clumped together, and when it's mixed with certain antibodies, it helps us identify the blood type accurately. Another thing important to know is how blood circulates through the heart and through the anatomy of the heart. So the heart is responsible for circulating blood throughout our whole body, and it's in a closed loop structure, right? The intricate network of blood vessels, this includes your arteries, your veins, and capillaries, and it ensures that there's a constant flow of oxygen and nutrients to all organs. Okay, and at the center of the system is our amazing heart. You're going to need to know the anatomy of the heart. It's a muscular organ, and it has 4 chambers. You have the 2 atria and the 2 ventricles. In addition to the 4 chambers, the heart has 4 valves that regulate blood flow into and out of the heart. There's the tricuspid valve, the pulmonary valve, the mitral valve, and the aortic valve, and you're going to need to know these. They all work together to pump continuously and maintain this vital rhythm of life. Now, talking about circulation, you need to know the difference between systemic versus pulmonary circulation. You need to understand deoxygenated blood versus oxygenated blood. You see, deoxygenated blood from our body returns to the heart via the superior and inferior vena cava, and it enters the lungs through the pulmonary circulation. Then it gets oxygenated. The oxygen-rich blood then flows through the systemic circulation, reaching all of the body tissues and organs, where it delivers the oxygen. Another important thing is the cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle refers to coordinated contractions and relaxation of the heart's chambers. It ensures efficient blood circulation. So by understanding the cardiac cycle, we can comprehend how the heart works. You need to know about EKGs and how to read them. EKGs are used to monitor heart activity by medical professionals. The questions of the cardiovascular system are going to be very detailed. So you might see a detailed question like, when the pulmonic valve closes and the aortic valve opens, it releases what type of blood? So you're going to need to know the anatomy of the blood and the blood flow process to answer these questions correctly. So that pretty much sums it up for our review of the cardiovascular system, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, next we're going to do the respiratory system. We're going to review some fundamental concepts of the respiratory system. Here it plays a crucial role in supplying oxygen to our bodies and removing carbon dioxide. You need to know the anatomy first off. It consists of several organs, including the nose, nasal cavity, mouth, larynx, pharynx, lungs, and diaphragm. The respiratory organs are anatomically divided into the upper and lower respiratory tracts, so know which is which. The upper respiratory tract consists of the nose, nasal cavity, pharynx, while the lower respiratory tract includes the trachea, bronchi, and lungs. So you also need to know the function of each part. It's important to know things like the larynx, which is also known as your voice box. That is what guides air to the trachea and directs food away from the lungs during swallowing. Okay, so you're also going to want to know how air travels. It starts from traveling down the larynx, down to the trachea, which is also known as your windpipe, then branches into bronchi, which is further divided into smaller bronchioles, and they lead to the tiny air sacs called alveoli. And that's where gas exchange occurs. So it's important to know all the parts and how they're connected and how the air travels. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the process of gas exchange. You need to understand how oxygen-poor blood travels back to the lungs, where carbon dioxide is released and exhaled. The respiratory system works closely with the cardiovascular system and the nervous system to regulate blood gas and pH levels. So it's important to know that they work together. And understand that carbon dioxide, not oxygen, Carbon dioxide plays a critical role in maintaining the proper acid-base balance in our blood. So lastly, I want to discuss the mechanics of respiration. It occurs in two stages. There's external respiration and internal respiration. External respiration takes place in the lungs, where oxygen from the air diffuses into the blood in the alveoli, while carbon dioxide is expelled from the blood into the air. Whereas internal respiration occurs at a cellular level. That's where the oxygen-rich blood reaches the body's tissues, where oxygen diffuses into the cells, while carbon dioxide moves from the cells into the bloodstream. So you want to know the difference between the external and internal respiration. So overall, remember that respiration is not just about breathing. It is a vital process that keeps our bodies functioning together. And that pretty much wraps it up for the respiratory system. Now we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, now we're going to jump into the gastrointestinal system. We're going to review the essential concepts of the digestive system, which is the GI system. You need to know the functions of the digestive system, which is pretty broad. It takes in food, breaks down food, absorbs digestive molecules, provides nutrients, and eliminates waste. The digestive system consists of the digestive tract. So what is the digestive tract? That's a tube extending from the mouth all the way down to the anus, and you need to know the accessory organs. The accessory organs play a critical role in the digestion process. Even though food does not pass through some of them, you need to know where food passes and where it doesn't pass in the digestive system. You're going to be expected to know the anatomy of the digestive system, as well as knowing the path, how food travels into the system. So let's talk about the path. As food moves through the body, it takes a specific path, right? It starts in the oral cavity or the mouth, and it passes through the pharynx and into the esophagus, into the stomach. You need to know that the stomach is an enlarged segment of the digestive tract. That's where it receives food from the esophagus, and it goes through the cardiac sphincter, and it exits the pyloric sphincter. So this is why the anatomy of the digestive system is important to know how it flows. You have the small intestines, and you need to know there's three parts of the small intestines, which are the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. And the primary site for diffusion of nutrients into the blood is the small intestines. Now moving on to the large intestines, this consists of the cecum, colon, rectum, and anal canal. The colon also has 4 parts that you need to be aware of. The large intestine's primary function is to compress waste and absorb excess water. So you need to know the difference between the small and large intestines. When I spoke about accessory organs, you need to understand what accessory organs are and how they contribute to digestion. For example, there's the liver. The liver is located in the upper right quadrant of the abdomen. It performs functions like bile production and detoxification. There's also the pancreas and the gallbladder. And let's not forget about the tongue and the salivary glands in the oral cavity, which help with it helps with food movement, chewing, and the initial stages of chemical digestion. So all of these are very important and work together for digestion, right? Let's focus on digestion process itself. You need to know that digestion is the breakdown of food into molecules small enough to be absorbed into the bloodstream. There's 2 types of digestion. There's mechanical and chemical. So you need to understand the difference between both of them. And you need to know how things are broken down, like proteins are broken down into amino acids and lipids are broken down into fatty acids and such. So finally, let's discuss some of the common disorders of the digestive system. There's ulcers. Ulcers are often caused by H. pylori, and they result from stomach acids digesting the mucus lining of the duodenum. There's also things like cirrhosis and hepatitis. Those are diseases that affect the liver and interfere with its normal functions. Other conditions are Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, IBS, and malabsorption syndrome. They can impact the intestines and affect digestion and nutrient absorption. Another very common thing is appendicitis. Appendicitis is the inflammation of the appendix, and it can occur due to obstruction, and it requires medical attention. So those are just some of the main things. That wraps up our review for the digestive system. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, now we're moving to the reproduction system. Topics related to the male and female reproductive systems for the entrance exam. So let's get started. The reproductive system is a crucial aspect of the human biology because this enables the process of sexual reproduction. It consists of various organs with specific functions, so you want to know the difference between the organs and what their functions are. You want to understand the components of the reproductive system in the biological and medical terms in both males and females. You want to know what male and female reproductive systems contribute to the reproduction of and birth of an infant. For example, understand the difference between sperm and the ovum and what occurs between the two. So the male reproductive system is responsible for providing the sperm, which carries the genetic contribution from the father. The main organs involve the testicles, and that's comparable to the female ovaries. On the other hand, the female reproductive system plays a crucial role in providing the ovum or the egg cell, and this carries the genetic contribution from the mother. Additionally, the female reproductive system supports fertilization by providing a nurturing environment for the embryo's development. So with a HESI exam being a time test, it's going to be important to navigate tricky questions, but you have to know the functional understanding to answer these questions, right? So an example of a question would be, an embryo develops into a fetus in the what? Would it be the fallopian tube, ovary, uterus, or vagina? So by studying this system, you would know that the uterus performs numerous critical functions during reproduction. It provides mechanical protection, nutritional support, and waste removal for the developing embryo. So the answer would be uterus. Well, there's obvious differences between the male and female reproductive systems, but there's also important similarities. For example, you need to know the similarities and differences, right? Both systems have organs that produce specialized cells, which are the sperm and eggs, and support the process of reproduction. Not only will you be expected to know the anatomy, but you're going to want to know what does and does not happen during puberty. You want to understand how the sexual reproduction process works in humans from development, puberty, and sexual maturity. There's also the stages of pregnancies that can be divided into trimesters, and you want to understand the development of an infant from fertilization to birth and what happens in each trimester. So that pretty much wraps up the reproductive system, and we will jump into the next one. First off, the anatomy, pretty much anatomy all the time. Anatomy of the urinary system you need to know. Urinary system is also known as the renal system, and this consists of the kidneys, ureters, bladder, and urethra. There's three basic parts of the urinary system, and these are vital functions to know. This is waste elimination, osmoregulation of the blood and water, and hormone secretion that directly influences various processes in the body. And when it comes to hormones across all systems covered on the HESI exam, you're going to get pretty detailed questions on hormones, so make sure you're familiar with them. It's important to note that the urinary system works closely with other body systems as well, like the cardiovascular system and respiratory system all work together to perform its function. The kidney is the primary organ of the urinary system, and you need to know this and the functions. The kidney functions, it filters and excretes waste from the blood produced in urine. Blood enters the kidney through the renal artery and exits through the renal vein. The urine flows down the ureters, accumulates in the bladder, and is eventually expelled through the urethra. So having an understanding of the flow and how it works is important. So you need to have an understanding of nephrons as well as how urine formation occurs. Each kidney contains over 1 million nephrons, which play a crucial role in filtering blood and forming urine. A nephron consists of two main parts. We're going to walk through the process of urine formation, and you need to know how it occurs in three key processes. After the urine is formed, it travels through the collecting ducts of the nephron and it enters the ureters. But there's also the urine concentration. So what about that? This is really important because that's where the antidiuretic hormone, or ADH, comes into play. ADH regulates the concentration and volume of urine by controlling water reabsorption in the tubules of the nephrons. So make sure you know about ADH. Let's talk about urinalysis. Urinalysis is important to know that it's a test used to evaluate the quality of urine and diagnose urinary health problems. So be prepared to answer some questions related to urinalysis. There's microscopic urinalysis that involves analyzing the sediment under a microscope. And this helps to identify red blood cells, fat cells, bacteria, parasites, and tumor cells. It aids in diagnosing kidney disease, cancer, infections, and liver diseases as well. So that pretty much wraps up our review for the urinary system. Remember to study the key functions of the nephron structure, urine formation, ADH, and urinalysis. If you want to pause and take a break before continuing, we have 5 more sections to go. And remember, make sure you're following us on TikTok so you can be binge watching our practice questions in between your breaks any other time, and helpful mnemonics and whatnot. All right, to the next one. Okay, now let's shift our focus to topics that focus around the A&P questions based on support and movement. This includes the skeletal, muscular, and integumentary system. Let's review the skeletal system with a quick overview. So the skeletal system not only provides structural support and protection, but it also aids in movement. It serves as a mineral reservoir and it helps produce cells. You need to know that it consists of 2 main divisions. There's the axial skeleton and the appendicular skeleton. The axial skeleton includes the skull, sternum, rib cage, and vertebral column. On the other hand, the appendicular skeleton comprises the upper and lower extremities. So the skeletal system consists of bones, cartilage, and ligaments, and you should know what they are, what they do, and how they work. So let's talk about all the different bone types, right? In the human body, we have 5 types of bones. There's long, short, flat, irregular, and sesamoid. An example of what you would not see on the test is, what is a flat bone? That would be a little bit too easy, right? So the HESI entrance exam is going to give you something more like, which of these bones is a flat bone? And then you'll have a list of bones to choose from. So not only do you need to know what a flat bone is, you'll need to go a step further and know the bones in the answer choices, which ones are flat bones, and choose them all, right? So you need to understand ossification. This is the process typically occurs during childhood and involves the transformation of soft cartilage into hard bone by depositing minerals like calcium and phosphorus. Lastly, let's talk about bone remodeling. This is an ongoing process that replaces old, mature bone tissue with new bones. It involves the action of 3 types of bone cells, and you need to know each and the difference, right? So there's osteocytes, which produce substance like collagen. There's osteoblast, which is responsible for bone formation. And then there's osteoclast. That's where it dissolves and reabsorbs bone tissues. So this pretty much gives a brief overview of the skeletal system. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you want to learn more, we have many more details when you're ready. Let's talk about the next system. Okay, guys, we're getting closer. So now we're in the muscular system. So to ace the questions in the muscular system, just like the rest of the systems, it's crucial to have a solid understanding of the anatomy, physiology, and the functions of this system. So let's break it down together, okay? The muscular system is responsible for various body movements and has additional functions like providing support, stabilizing joints, and generating heat. It comprises of 3 types of muscles that you need to be aware of the 3 muscles, where they're found. The 3 muscles are cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. So cardiac muscles are found in the heart. They are striated, short, and branched. They contract involuntarily, and they're controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Smooth muscles are located in organs like the bladder and stomach. They are non-striated and they're spindle-shaped. So they contract involuntary. Lastly, there's skeletal muscles. Skeletal muscles attach to the bones, skeletal, so it's easy to remember. They are striated and they allow voluntary movement under conscious control. You want to know that skeletal muscles consist of muscle fibers and they're connected to bones through connective tissues called tendons. There's four properties of the muscular system. So the four properties would be excitability, contractility, extensibility, and elasticity. So there are three types of muscle tissues that comprise a skeletal muscle that you should be aware of. There's the epimysium, the endomysium, and the perimysium. You want to know the difference between those and beware of that. You want to know what myofibrils are, actin, and myosin myofilaments are. So you need to know what the slide filament theory is and expect possible question on that. So now we're going to explore the coordination of movement. Ligaments connect bones to form joints. So there's three types that you should be aware of, three types of joints. There's immovable, partly movable, and synovial, which are freely movable joints. Okay, so tendons, which are made of tough connective tissue, they attach muscles to bones and enable movement. Muscles work in pairs, so understand that when one muscle acting as the flexor to bend a joint, the other acts as the extensor to straighten it out. So that pretty much wraps up our overview of the muscular system. Okay, so we made it to the integumentary system. This is the last subject within the support and movement topic, so hang in there. We only have a few more to go, okay? So in addition to knowing the anatomy of the system, like everything else, the anatomy, it's important to know how all of it functions together and how it relates to the body as a whole. So understanding the skin, hair, and nails is a crucial part as they play a vital role in protecting the body and maintaining homeostasis. So we're going to explore these key points together right now. The skin is the largest organ of the body. It has multiple functions that you need to be aware of. This includes protection and temperature regulation. You're going to be expected to know the layers of the skin. It's divided into three layers, which is the epidermis, dermis, and subcutaneous layer. The epidermis is the outermost layer, which consists of several layers you need to know. Within the dermis, which is the deeper layer, you'll find our hair follicles and glands. There's two types of glands to be aware of that's found in the dermis. That's our sebaceous glands and the sweat glands. And the sweat glands are divided into eccrine and apocrine gland as well. And these are important because it regulates body temperature and produces fluids containing water, salt, and waste products as well. So moving on to nail and hair, both structures are made of keratin. And you want to know how it all works together, right? So keratin is a protein that adds strength and toughness. Hair originates from hair follicles in the dermis, while the nails are composed of the nail plate, nail bed, cuticle, and matrix. So you need to know the anatomy of that, right? Lastly, it's important to know what the effects of aging are in cancer on the body. So be aware that overexposure to UV radiation, like sunlight and tanning beds, can increase the risk of skin cancer. And there's three main types of skin cancers, which are basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and malignant melanoma. So keep in mind that as you age, the integrity and structure of the skin, hair, and nails can be affected. So these are the key points to remember about the integumentary system. Understanding its anatomy and functions will be valuable throughout your whole nursing career. Okay, so jumping into the nervous system. So the nervous system is quite complex, and it's easy to overstudy this topic or study the wrong thing. So like we've said with every other system, it's important to know first the anatomy, and secondly, important to understand all of the functions of the nervous system. So let's just jump right in, right? First things you need to know about the nervous system on a detailed level, starting with two parts of the nervous system. There's the central nervous system, which is the CNS, and the peripheral nervous system, which is the PNS. The CNS consists of the brain and the spinal cord. This handles information processing and control. On the other hand, the PNS, or the peripheral nervous system, connects all the nerves in our body to the CNS, allowing communication throughout the entire system. So the autonomic nervous system further splits into the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions, and you need to know both of those. They have very different roles depending on the situation. So ask yourself, what exactly does the nervous system do, right? You need to understand that it performs three major functions. There's the sensory, integrative, and motor. You need to know these functions and how they differ. For example, the motor function involves the transmission of signals from the CNS to muscles and glands, which allow us to move and respond in situations. So let's take a closer look at the brain, okay? That's the command center of the nervous system. The anatomy of the brain is what you need to be aware of, and see that it's broken into three regions. There's the cerebrum, the brainstem, and the cerebellum. Within the cerebrum, we find that there's a cerebral cortex. That's the gray matter that surrounds the cerebrum. The cortex is divided into four lobes, and you're going to need to know the lobes of the brain, which are the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. You need to know each lobe and their specific functions. An interesting part of the brain is called limbic system. This is like the emotional center and memory hub. The limbic system includes structures such as the hypothalamus, thalamus, hippocampus, and the amygdala. You need to know each of these structures and how they serve different purposes, from regulating homeostasis and emotions to forming memories and processing sensory information. We're going to zoom in on the building blocks of the nervous system, which is neurons. Neurons are specialized cells that transmit electrical signals throughout our bodies. They consist of the parts which are dendrites, a cell body, an axon, and an axon terminal. You need to know neurons have a remarkable feature called the myelin sheath, which insulate the axon of the neuron, and this increases the spread of electrical signal transmission. Another major important system is the synaptic transmission and nerve impulses. So this means also understanding the difference between resting and action potential. You see, to send signals from one neuron to another, there's a process called synaptic transmission that occurs. This process involves several steps, and it only takes place following an action potential, which is an electrical impulse generated when a neuron is stimulated. So it is a lot of details, but that's pretty much some insight into the nervous system that you do need to know. And remember, there's more details within our coursework. So I'm just going to be honest with you. You can definitely expect a handful of questions about the endocrine system. This is a system that's working hand in hand with the nervous system. It plays a vital role in regulating numerous activities that are critical to maintaining homeostasis. So let's dive right into what you should know. So you know the hormones really well, and you need to know where they are and what they release and how they release them. Here's a few of the functions of the endocrine system. There's water balance, ion regulation, growth metabolism, and blood glucose control. You need to know that the endocrine system releases chemical signals, and there are several different types you will need to know. It's common to see questions about receptor molecules and how they interact within the system to produce responses. So to produce a response, these chemical signals bind to receptor molecules found on the surface of cells. These receptors, often proteins or glycoproteins, they act like locks that can only be opened with the right key. Specific chemical changes, right? So once the chemical signals bind to the receptor, it sets off a chain of reactions within the cell. Lastly, you're going to understand that hormones and their secretions, as well as endocrine glands and their secretions, are going to be a must know on the HESI entrance exam. Hormones are distributed in the body all over, to all parts of the body, but only certain tissues, which are called target tissues, respond to each type of hormone. However, not every tissue in our body responds to each hormone. It's as if each hormone has a secret code that only specific tissues can decipher, right? So you need to know how the body is able to maintain a balance and prevent hormone levels from going haywire, right? So what happens is our body employs a negative feedback mechanism. You need to know about that. These mechanisms regulate the secretion of hormones, ensuring that they stay within a narrow range. It's kind of like a built-in thermostat that keeps everything in check. So lastly, it's important to understand that the aging process can affect hormone activity, and all of them change in a certain way. As we age, hormone secretions may decrease, remain unchanged, and even some increase. So you want to check out and know the differences. Um, that's basically it at a glimpse into the endocrine system. Here we go. This is the final system we're going to talk about. This is the last one you can expect questions on for the A&P section of the HESI exam. It is the lymphatic system. This is an incredible system that plays a crucial role in providing immunity against pathogens. So let's dive into what you should know. First, to understand the lymphatic system, we need to explore the key components. So you need to know about the organs such as the spleen, tonsils, adenoids, appendix, thymus gland, and lymph nodes. Each of these organs has its own important role in supporting our immune system. Surprisingly, the tonsils, adenoids, and appendix were once thought to be vestigial organs, and now they've been discovered to have active functions, so you need to know each of their functions. One of the key players in the lymphatic system is the thymus gland. That's located just above the heart. This gland secretes hormones that stimulate the maturation of killer T cells. That's a type of white blood cell. There's also the lymph nodes. That's another essential component. It acts as a filter for lymph fluid. It helps destroy harmful pathogens and foreign toxins. They play a crucial role in the body's defenses against invaders. So you're going to want to explore the immune response within the lymphatic system. You know, when a pathogen enters our body, there's B cell and T cells, which are two types of white blood cells, spring into action. You need to know the difference, such as B cells do not directly attack the pathogens or the infected cells. Instead, they have receptor proteins called antibodies on their surface, which mark invaders for destruction. So this leads us to vaccinations. You need to understand that it's a powerful tool in preparing the lymphatic system to combat diseases. It involves introducing a dead or disabled pathogen or a harmless microbe with the pathogen proteins to trigger a specific immune response. This process creates memory cells that provide long-term protection against future infections. Unfortunately, there are instances where our body's immune system breaks down and attacks its own cells. These are known as autoimmune diseases, so you need to be aware of those. Conditions like systemic lupus, type 1 diabetes, Graves' disease, and rheumatoid arthritis are examples of such disorders. It's important to understand these common diseases or disorders of the lymphatic system so you can know how to treat them as well. You also need to know about age, how it has a negative impact on the lymphatic system. As we grow older, our bodies produce fewer B and T cells, which weaken our defense against viruses and bacteria. Additionally, there are allergies. That's an overactive immune response, and that can cause discomfort and inflammation. Great job, guys, making it to the end with me. I really hope this helps break everything down and provide areas to study. Before we wrap it up, don't forget to take advantage of the incredible free resources waiting below, guys. It's free, Check out our TikTok. That's myself and other nurses. We give practice questions and tips. It's just a fun, interactive way to study on the scroll. You can boost your preparation with our free HESI practice test. This is designed to assess your skills in all exam sections, and it will show you your weaknesses and strengths, so you know where to study, right? And if you're seeking support, join our study group where you can connect with fellow students. But overall, guys, if you are looking for an all-in-one study solution for the HESI A2, then look no further. Just click the link below to explore our comprehensive online study course. It has everything you need to conquer the exam conveniently gathered into one place. You're going to be well equipped to achieve your dream score and secure your spot in your desired program. So what are you waiting for? Access those free resources, and your success is just a click away.